name is Karin Aggestam. I'm a professor of political science at Lund University, Sweden. I do work in international relations, peace and conflict research, and specializes on peace mediation, international negotiations, peace building, and in recent years also I have worked on the problems of water scarcity in the Middle East in collaboration with water resource engineering. It's a fantastic and very ambitious initiative, I think, gathering a large group of scholars, forcing us to think seriously about important issue of social progress and social justice in our specific areas of research, and try to say something constructive about that. So I think that's a very, very ambitious and applaudable initiative. It focuses on peace, conflict, war and violence. And we can see today in the world, we live in a turbulent world. The patterns and trends are contradictory, sometimes difficult to understand. So I do think we face a number of problematic issues in regards to international engagement, about peacemaking, about peace building, about protection, and about violence in general. So we need to do a lot of work in this particular area. Mm-hmm. I have worked in recent years extensively on trying to rethink peace building in relations to justice issues. And in that regard, it's particularly focusing on the quality of peace. And I think that's very important when we talk about social progress. And in regards to the quality of peace, it means that we need to move beyond the negative definition of peace as the absence of violence, and to think seriously about how we are to visualize and understand a positive notion of peace, which then would include aspects of justice, about fairness, about representation, about recognition, and the politics of peace building. I do think that in recent decades, the international community has been engaged, trying to promote a much broader understanding of peace, very ambitiously. But it has generated a number of counterproductive results from a lot of reasons. One reason is that a lot of the peace support operations, the way they have been designed, has been very top-down. So we need, that's why I emphasize the politics of peace building, in order to engage in the interplay between the international and the local, in order to anchor the peace, and also to get the ownership of the peace on the ground. So the question of whose peace is related to who is included or excluded in the peace processes, and the way ideas are being implemented and by whom. I have a recent project on gender and peace negotiations, because it's striking how few women conduct international mediation. We're talking about figures like 4 to 6% of all the efforts of international mediation is conducted by women. So we need to raise the issue of inclusion of women in general, but definitely when we talk about the elite level, get women to have a say about peace in order to understand and to promote a notion of sustainable peace. And I do think that we also need to do much more work and research on gender-based violence and sexual violence in conflict. I think we can see and hear daily in the Middle East and the human catastrophe that is taking place in Syria that raises these issues. So I do think we need to address them among many other issues, of course, and to think seriously, not only about peace building in the long term, but also think very seriously about protection. And in regards to protection, I think also the migration crisis in Europe developing is raising that issue. And I do think that thinking about social progress, about social justice, will help us rethink strategies that are more constructively engaging and addressing these issues. Well, I'm a political scientist, so that's my background, and that's also why I'm interested in the politics of peace building. But I do seek a lot of collaboration with other disciplines like international law. I do think that we need to collaborate across disciplines. For instance, when we problematize protection and understand how peace agreements are implemented, you do need, for instance, perspectives from international law. But I also think that when you talk about water scarcity, you do need to also engage with the natural sciences and water resource engineers, as I've done, and I've found that very constructively. So you sort of need to engage more broadly. And I think that our chapter 10 on peace, conflict, violence, will reflect a broad range of issues, ranging from psychological approaches of understanding conflict and peace to questions about redistribution, which relates to socioeconomic issues. And that feeds also into the other chapters. So I think that may be a nice synthesis that is necessary, because we're talking about huge, complex problems that we are facing today. That's our ambition, of course, and but I do think that we also need to be very aware about some of the limitations and the sensitivity that we need to have in regards to the diversity of context, regions, histories and narratives. So I think that the way we think about it is precisely what the Scientific Council also mentioned, that we should strive, or at least force ourselves, at least to think about some kind of conditional prescriptions and some kind of policy recommendations in order to get a dialogue also going beyond academia with other key actors and stakeholders in this field.